It can be hard to evangelize anime sometimes. One off-putting joke or a bit of fan service can alienate a newcomer. And while I love suggesting the works of Satoshi Kon or Shinichiro Watanabe, I want something a little more fresh. That something today is Trillion Game, an anime about the modern world of finance and technology, like a Tesla crashing into the Wolf of Wall Street. And just because it's rated MA does not mean it's missing that goofy anime spirit. I mean, who wouldn't want to take a Scrooge McDuckian bath every now and then? Trillion Game explores the ethical and moral sacrifices of creating a company that has only a profit motive, making the viewer walk the razor's edge between cheering for and rooting against the protagonist, all while they try to make another dollar. And maybe you're still thinking, so what if Trillion Game covers adult themes? There is plenty of just god-awful rated R content out there. Why give Trillion Game a chance? 2 reasons: the intent of the source material, and its creators. While the anime premiered earlier this month, the manga it's based on was released back in December of 2020 through Big Comic Superior, a purveyor of seinen manga. For the uninitiated, think adult themes and target audiences similar to Alan Moore's Watchmen or Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim. Trillion Game's writer, Ryoichi Ikegami, is a veteran in the industry. He's the creator of Dr. Stone, along with everyone's favorite manga/anime about real football, Eyeshield 21. Trillion Game's illustrator is no slouch either. Ryoichi Ikegami is an international award-winning artist best known for My the Psychic Girl, Crying Freeman, and Heat. Not to mention Ikegami's contributions to the Gekiga style, an artistic counter-movement that led to a more dramatic and adult-oriented manga scene similar to the rise of the graphic novel here in the West. Speaking of awards, whether you're already an anime fan or a budding whippersnapper, you're probably already aware of last year's smash hit, Freeman: Beyond Journey's End. Don't know how that got there. Anyway, Freeman's manga was awarded one of 2023's Shogakukan Manga Awards, as was Trillion Game. And it's not even the first Shogakukan award that Trillion Game's creators won, with Inagaki's Dr. Stone winning in 2018 and Ikegami's Heat back in 2002. So, having met our clout hurdle, our story. Haru and Gaku have done it. They've become 2 of the top 10 richest people on the planet, a first for Japan in the 21st century. For perspective, in real life today, Tadashi Yanai of Fast Retailing, parent company of Uniqlo, is the richest Japanese person with a net worth of $39.4 billion. And as much as Haru, the silver-tongued face man of the duo, might like to languish with bubbly and babes, it's Gaku, the technological brains of the outfit, that takes us back to how everything began. See, back in middle school, Haru aggressively persuaded some muggers targeting Gaku, only to realize that a security camera caught his act of violence. He laughs off how, even in defense of another, this will lead to his expulsion from school. Gaku, mentally checking off pros and cons, decides to try to hack the camera and successfully deletes the footage. Fast forward to after college, but before escorts and escargot, now there's a $1 trillion idea. Haru and Gaku both land final round interviews for entry-level positions at Dragon Bank. Nicknamed Yakuza IT, I'd say Dragon Bank is a Japanese fictional parallel to Bloomberg or BlackRock. Despite impressing Princess Kiri, a 20-year-old savant and Dragon Bank nepo baby, Gaku receives his Dear John letter while Haru blusters his way through to a position. Insult meet injury. Gaku's temp job has him cleaning windows at Dragon Bank, where Haru rappels down to meet him, having quit his job because he wants to work with Gaku. Then launching into a speech that comes right out of Wall Street.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Opining about building a $1 trillion company that will someday own even Dragon Bank. So how do Haru and Gaku become the new Bill Gates and Steve Jobs? Well, that's kind of the show. I mean, I wouldn't tell you to Google Jordan Belfort before watching The Wolf of Wall Street. It's fun to watch these things unfold. But as an anime amuse-bouche, I can say that their activities range from clever programming and business practices to some light fraud and intimidation. But definitely not this.
You jerk off?
Yeah, I jerk off, yeah.
How many times a week?
Like, three, four times, maybe.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
I actually discovered the Trillion Game manga back in early 2024. What drew me to it was the fact that when I'm not wearing my anime evangelism collar, I develop databases for the financial industry. Who better to enjoy Trillion Game than an evergreen anime fan, a fintech code monkey, and former theater professional? It helps that Trillion Game's author is very good at distilling complicated subjects for an unfamiliar audience. I mean, Dr. Stone is pretty much science isekai with a strong Bill Nye flavor mixed in.
Science rules.
And as a guy in the industry, I can tell you that Trillion Game is the same. There is a lot of financial and computer science jargon covered in the series. Admittedly, some of the IT concepts are just accurate enough to avoid lighting their chinos on fire, and the business concepts come with light but germane exposition. But the theater kid in me wants more. Specifically, my brand of theater nerd is dramaturgy, which is just a $5 word for being a literary analyst, researcher, and technical advisor. So, I want this to be the start of a series where we dig into the future episodes and talk about the jargon, the context around how Haru and Gaku are using their skills, and some historical context for insight on what might be motivating them. Would a dramaturgical example help? Let's talk about the anime's name. In the first minute of Trillion Game, Haru says that Google, Microsoft, and Amazon have a market capitalization, or total value across all shares, of $1 trillion. Keep his obsession with wealth in mind, we will get back to that, but as a pedantic aside, I'm not sure how Haru got his data. Going back to 2016, 4 years before the manga was published, those three companies had a total market cap of $1.3 trillion. Today it's around 7. Don't get me wrong, $1 trillion is a ridiculous sum of money. Haru wants a company that's worth around 5 Bezoses or 4 Elons, which is already too many. Hell, $1 trillion of anything is a stupid number. In dollars, you could have bought half of Manhattan back in 2018. Lego? You'd have around twice as many as there are on Earth. Or, as Scrooge McDuck spelled out way back in 1967,
$1 billion on the ground, all stretched out and uncurled, would extend about 4 times around the circumference of the world.
Keep in mind $1 trillion is 1,000 billion, so those Benjamins would wrap around the world 4,000 times, which makes the sheer greed of wanting $1 trillion company an interesting facet to explore. Why does Haru want it? Why does Gaku go along with it? Call in the dramaturg. The story's time and place and its historical and cultural influence might give some insights. Just looking at the tech involved indicates the story is near present day, and Haru tells a potential investor that Gaku worked at Zoom, he didn't, and that sets the main story between 2013, Zoom's first release, to now, since Zoom became a household name during the COVID-19 pandemic. But what insight does that provide? In Japan, the lost decade was a period of financial turmoil that made the financial crisis and 2000s dot-com bubble look like child's play. It followed the Showa era, literally translating to bright peace, where the Japanese boomers kicked butt and took names in the electronic and automotive industries in the 70s and 80s. And by kick butt, I mean it was so severe American automakers would occasionally respond like this. In those lost decades that followed, Japan fell from the second largest gross domestic product, or GDP, to the fourth, behind China and Germany. Haru and Gaku would have had a family that lived through those good old days, but only to see those same family members struggle financially while they were growing up. Becoming men in dark financial times makes episode 1's title apt, The World's Most Selfish Man. If you aren't into history, the technical jargon is fun to contextualize too. The PTW attack that Gaku performs on the bank camera system is a real hacking method against the WEP network protocol. The turbulence of the lost decades is the only reason I could see a bank using WEP though, since WPA replaced it back in 2003, and WPA2 replaced that in 2004. So Gaku hacking it as a middle schooler is impressive, but the code to perform that exploit is older than he is. He's also right about the bank's SOC auditing catching them if they withdrew a big chunk of money while hacking the bank's system. System and organization controls is a real kind of data and transaction audit that I've had to implement as a layperson. And I can understand if this exposition is a little dry, but it's all to set up some very interesting problems and solutions for our duo. Haru and Gaku's search for an investor and venture capital, trying to make a name for themselves at an IT security championship, trying to make an AI assistant, which, with all the ChatGPT clones popping up, including Amazon's Rufus being the most recent proto-Terminator, talk about art imitating life. When trying to make $1 trillion, anything is on the table. You can watch Trillion Game on Crunchyroll to decide for yourself. Or, if you're more of a comic book guy, the first volume of Trillion Game is now available in English from Viz Media. And I'll have more commentary on new episodes of Trillion Game here in the weeks to come. We'll dig into where the tech is used well and where
It's all bullshit and it's bad for you.
along with verifying business jargon and strategies, plus a little cultural context too. If you're new to anime and want to branch out based on familiar Western media, I would start here. And the almighty algorithm seems to think you'd like this video in particular. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next sermon.